Okay, welcome my guest, Shannon Pritchett from Career Crossroads. Shannon, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm glad to be here.
Yep. So this is our year-end wrap-up kind of podcast video cast. I thought I would bring in somebody that is an absolute expert, has been in the industry for years and years, has been on the speaking stage plenty of times at SourceCon and everywhere else. So there's been a lot of new technologies. There's been a lot of technologies touted over the last 12 months. At the beginning of 2019, did you make any predictions as to, or have any kind of thoughts about what kind of technologies were really going to take hold in 2019?
Oh gosh, we have to start with this question because I have a feeling this is also going to be my what's going to happen in 2020, right? That we didn't
Yeah.
get to. I was expecting more AI adoption for 2019, and I was also expecting more like groundbreaking tools and technologies to emerge, and we really didn't see that this year. We saw
Groundbreaking in what way?
I don't know.
Just
Something that would go.
consolidating all the different ad hoc kind of verticalized different tools into one tool, or?
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting towards, but I was looking for something revolutionary that we haven't seen before. Like that magic help button that doesn't
Mhm.
exist. I was looking for something that I didn't even know what it was. And that's typically what we see around this time come out. And I don't think it's coming out this year. I think there have been so many acquisitions and mergers that, we're building towards those tools. And so instead of companies figuring out, okay, this is what I need to build myself, they're kind of saying, oh, what if I buy this company and then bring it to what we have, and that's going to build that one big proprietary system. But no, I was kind of looking for something that really didn't exist. Don't really know what that is yet, but I was hoping that there'd be some new groundbreaking, jaw-dropping tool, and it didn't really happen. So I wish I had a more explanation around what I was looking for, but I'm always looking for, of course, that tool that can make
No,
it.
I kind of get it. I mean, I was hoping for something like that out of Google, and
Right.
especially with Google for Hire, and obviously they did Google for Jobs, things like that. We're both tongue tied today,
I know.
but neither one have really taken off. I mean, Google for Jobs obviously has taken off a lot better than Google for Hire, but they're actually closing down Google Hire sometime in Q1, I think, right? They're not even taking on new clients right now, which was a big surprise. I think they didn't really fully understand that if you go into the SMB market, you're talking about lots of little mom and pop pizzerias and shops like that are only making one or two hires a year, and it's just not worth $50 a month or $100 a month. You know.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
the
and I
one
think
big tech. Go
small
ahead.
companies are those small companies, that I don't even know how they would know that Google for Hire exists. I have a lot of friends that own the businesses, and I told them about it, and they were, they're kind of like, why would I even use something like this?
Well,
As
I
in,
mean, they had a sales force, pounding away at it, right? So,
Mhm.
they had people, anybody that signed up for the G Suite, they were trying to get them, into Google Fire if they saw any kind of activity like that. That's how they were doing it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
the one technology that I think really took off in 2019, and it kind of took place with the acquisition from iCIMS,
Mhm.
them buying Text Recruit, right? So texting and recruiting really took off.
yeah,
What were your
absolutely.
thoughts on texting?
Yeah, and I like some of the competitors that have also emerged in that space. I think iCIMS was one of the more impressive technology systems that we saw last year. And I think that's great because I think they were headed towards that archaic kind of route. And then they purchased Text Recruit, they purchased Jibe as well. So I think they're heading into that model. I think recruiters, it's funny. I think candidates are always quick to show us what trends that they like. And it's been
Yes.
texting for a number of years. I think recruiters and sourcers are the ones who are so slow to adopt those changes. And it's nice to finally see them catch up. And so that was a smart acquisition. Jai was a smart acquisition. I think iCIMS is setting themselves up for a very successful 2020 and beyond.
What's funny is like everybody blames recruiters and sourcers for being slow to adopt these new technologies. And by and large, I think that is true, but I also see it in the executive leadership teams that are running some of these companies. They are very hesitant to change anything that they're currently doing. They still want to follow a post, search, and pray methodology. Post a job on the job board, search the job board, and pray you can find the right candidate, or the right candidate finds you. But when they grab onto something that the recruiters really like, as long as it fits into their overall recruiting processes, I think they're willing to do it. And that's the big thing. They don't want to log into a separate system. They're lazy. They don't want to, if they can stay in their ATS or CRM world, then they're happy, right? So I think that's where Text Recruit really made it easy. Even though in the beginning they did have to log in, it was natural for them to kind of talk to candidates through texting. It was actually a lot easier for them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I don't know if you ever pounded and grounded away on the phone, but 50 to 100 phone calls a day is not my idea of fun. That's why I kind of pushed out video voicemail landing pages and stuff like that, so I didn't have to grind away on the phone every day.
So I started with a call sheet, so I've been there. You know that you hit a certain number. I would throw my friends' phone numbers in there occasionally, been like, "Hey, what's up? Thanks." Write you down for this Java developer position.
Yeah. We outsourced some of our sourcing to a guy that we had trained, and he had to meet X number of names a week to get a bonus, and he was throwing in names like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse. I'm like, really, dude? Come on, you think we're not going to check this? So we're not going to pay you a bonus for throwing in fake names. All right. So another technology that was really touted at the beginning, especially through the Candy Awards and the Talent Board, was video job ads. What do you see in the video job ad space?
Not much. I think it's because it is well adopted. I think a lot of companies do use it. I think candidates do like it. I think the coolest thing this year we've seen is the merger with like Montage and Shaker and how that's become Modern Hire. I like what they're doing there, and I know they're doing a lot of research and experimenting with diversity and AI for some of their interviews. And some of the technology out there around video interviewing makes me very nervous. Reading social cues and facial expressions and stuff like that, just because I think neurodiversity is going to play a huge part in 2020 and beyond, in the whole next decade that we're approaching. And I wonder how video interviewing might hurt candidates with a neurodiverse background. I always feel like I'm someone who's a little bit more extroverted, so I can do really well with interviews, but somebody I know who's just as brilliant, if not more brilliant than me, who's maybe introverted, how does that play against them? I don't really study that just yet. I did spend some time down in Australia, and there was a company down there called Curious Things that was doing some cool things, and they impressed me a lot down there, and they impressed me the most at HR Tech. So what they do is they provide on-demand, not necessarily video, but phone interviewing screening, and they use AI technology to ask like qualifying questions and probing questions. So you can go on and talk about your experience, and then they'll ask probing questions from there. So you're having a conversation with the robot, and it feels like you're having a conversation with a person. And I thought, for the positions that I looked at, I was like, oh my gosh, they're asking better follow-up questions than I ever did as a technical recruiter. And it won the competition that I was at the ATC conference down in Sydney. And they had a line at the booth at HR Tech. And so not necessarily video, more phone interviewing, but that's something that's coming, I think, that was really, really cool. And they offer an on-demand approach.
What company was that again?
Curious Things.
Curious Things. I'll have to look them up, see if they want to. Anybody from Curious Things want to come on the Speaker Agenda show, talk about it? Give me a holler. So
they're good guys.
You did mention a little buzzword that's kind of been floating around, and a lot of the audience may not be familiar with it. Can you kind of give me a 30-second definition of neurodiversity?
Neurodiversity. All right. So we've long looked at diversity as race, disability, gender, ethnicity, but no one's really looked at diversity of thought and expanded on that a little bit more. And so neurodiversity is looking at the different things that go on with mental awareness and mindset. For example, introversion versus extroversion, autism, Asperger's, and those different categories that really do make a lot of people bring a different sets and thoughts into the workforce. And
so it's not just necessarily a neurological impairment, let's say, for TBI, traumatic brain injuries, or autism, for example. It really runs the gamut of identifying what your personality is, and it also is inclusive of TBIs and autism and anything other that changes how the way you think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Glenn Caffey did actually a lot of research on it and posted a lot of articles that talks about being introverted and how that actually leads to very good, not only candidates, but employees, and how it's important to have a good balance between introversion and extroverted people in the workforce and on a team. And I couldn't agree more. Like I said, it's very easy for me to go into a room and dominate the conversation. I'm sure, Jeff, you're the same way. We're kind of bold, loud type A personalities, and we thrive in those situations. But sometimes a quiet person in the room really has all the ideas. They're just waiting to say it.
Well, believe it or not, when I was younger, I had paralyzing anxiety about, I was just very, very shy.
Really?
And that didn't come out and go away until I was probably in 6th, 7th grade when I started wrestling, and just built up my confidence on the wrestling mat and things like that. But literally, I could not talk to anybody. I was paralyzed with fear of other people.
I would never have known that about you.
Yep. Yeah, now here I am doing a freaking video cast and podcast. Go figure, right? So thank you for that definition of neurodiversity. I know a lot of people may not have even heard about it. So it's kind of, I had a conversation with somebody that had a TBI from a snowboarding accident. So he did a jump, did a flip, and landed on his head. And this was a semi-professional skier, right? So knocking what?
Oh no, wait.
So it was just interesting having that conversation with him, and just the challenges he's been having to overcome with his rehab and things like that. A lot of people don't realize this. TBIs, I mean, they can take years to even get back to semi-normal, if ever, right? So next one is the other thing that has really taken off is employer branding. I'm seeing a lot more employer brand videos going out, a lot more companies taking risk with their employer brand, which is I think is absolutely fantastic. They're not taking their employer brand as seriously as in a good way, as a consumer brand. Consumer brands are typically very tight and they don't like taking any risks, but I've seen a few companies take risks. What have you seen as far as employer branding?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're headed towards a more proactive employer brand approach, and also a universal approach, not just universal as in what we may see in the US, but globally, a universal approach. I can't count how many times I've seen a branding strategy here in the US. I'll travel abroad and see something completely different. And so I think now we're starting to see a more global and unified approach, and also make that a little bit more proactive as well. So I think it's just now the time that branding has become a little bit more into fruition with a lot of these big brands, and it really is helping with the inbound recruitment.
So I know you mentioned AI, machine learning, a little bit of cognitive there. What kind of technologies or what kind of companies have you seen really in the AI space that have made any kind of advancement? I know you were a little bit disappointed, but are there any companies that are making some good advancement?
Well, yeah, sure. No, I think it was, well, let me clarify the disappointment. I think I'm disappointed because we expected it to have taken over by now, right? Okay. And we all know that's not happening anytime soon.
Right.
But no, I really like what Alio is doing. I think they've advanced a lot. Alio has a cool partnership now with Zap Info. So there's kind of another, not really merger, but a partnership that we're seeing.
Shout out to David Bernstein. Hoop, hoop.
Yes.
He was on the show, episode 5 or 6, something like that.
Olivia and Paradox, I like what they're doing. We've seen a lot of good case studies and what they're doing with McDonald's, for example, in terms of some of the interviews that they're doing for their frontline workers. And also, some of these sourcing companies that are using AI. Hiring Solve's been a very good component.
Jeremy Roberts, shout out, boom.
Yes. They've had a lot of free products released this year. I know they're taking some away in 2020, but that's a company that can almost solve or hire all the positions for you. And same thing with advancement with the AI. Seek Out is also doing great things too. So I think we've seen it a lot on the sourcing side. I think I would like to see it a little bit on the branding side. I don't know how that would work, but it'd be really cool to, if you have a very good branding strategy that we were just talking about, if you can kind of rope that in. And I guess the AI I'm looking for there is more on the chatbot side. That all ties back to candidate experience. I think that's the one as well.
Yeah, I think the big hurdle right now for adoption is, budgets. Budgets are always a concern, but now it's budget season. So if you are looking at, moving some of your, let's say, advertising budget, which may not be performing as well as it had in the past, moving it to more of an engagement strategy type budget. So anything where your SMS or chatbots or something like Hone It, which is doing the calls, or something around the AI outreach, candidate engagement, and I've been touting this for 15 years, it's all about candidate engagement, not about candidate sourcing. And the reason I say that is, coming from a sourcing background, I started my first 10 years, I ran a sourcing desk. That's what I did. I was a sourcer, and I never used a job board for the first 15 years of my career. So never spent a single dime on job boards, and we were sourcing 10,000 candidates a month, something like that. I mean, it was high volume stuff, very difficult positions. But what I found was, with social media, with the internet, with all the different tools that we have access to, everybody has access to the same tools. You may not buy them, but you have access to them if you want them. And that levels the playing field for a sourcer. Now, there are certainly people that know how to use those tools a lot more effective, like Stephen Levy and things like that. But by and large, what's going to differentiate you in the marketplace is an engagement strategy.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think we actually had a long conversation about this at TalentNet, Craig Fisher's conference, which I got to
another shout out.
Yes. Shout out to Craig, 10 years at TalentNet. But what we were talking about was exactly what you're just referring to, how it relates to branding. I ran a SourceCon conference a year ago exactly, where we looked at combining the branding and marketing piece with the basically outbound. So inbound and outbound, and how that's the ultimate strategy. Intuit's doing a lot of cool things around that. So shout out to that company in terms of a lot of success. They've actually eliminated a lot of the need for sourcers within Intuit. And they're not eliminating sourcers, they're taking those sourcers and they're putting them on their critical, need to fill positions that the employer branding strategy just doesn't cover. So I think that is one success story that we're seeing a brand actually do well and successfully. But I also think, sourcers really need to step up on their soft skills. I think those core competencies are more important now than ever, because the playing field is easy. You and I know that, it's sourcing is all it goes above and beyond, especially today now, than just finding a particular candidate. I think anyone can find a candidate. I don't think that's very hard. I can put my pets on sorting to find things, and it's that easy. But engaging the candidate, to your point, that's going to be more difficult. And I think that's a challenge that many talent acquisition leaders are looking at. Is, okay, we can find 1 million people so easy, but how are we going to get them interested? How are we going to get their attention? I think that is where recruiting is somewhat broken right now. I hate to use that term broken, but I think we can see the most improvement in.
It's broken. Anytime you have 3% of the candidates that hit a career website actually engage with it in some way. That means applying, doing a search, 3%. That means the very beginning of your funnel is broken. And then you get down to, recruiters not being able to talk to hiring managers to do intake meetings, hiring managers ghosting candidates, candidates ghosting recruiters, recruiters ghosting candidates, and on and on and on. So there are definitely areas of opportunity where we can make huge improvements to help fix some of these holes in the recruiting process.
Yep.
So, all right. So here's one that you may or may not have a whole lot of information on: blockchain.
Yeah, I'm a fan of blockchain. Again, why isn't that adopted yet?
Well, there's only one company I know of that's really taking it in earnest to develop it, and that's job.com. So
I would love to see LinkedIn adopt blockchain. How cool would that be?
Give me a use case for blockchain in your view.
Verification.
Okay. Employment verification, right?
Employment verification, you know, and all that great things that go along with it, I think is cool too. And also too, I look at blockchain as also a form of like cryptocurrency, you know, because they kind of both, I think I would like to see some, you know, employers, I think it'd be really cool to, you know, let's get outside of the dollars and pay a little bit in cryptocurrencies. I think that'd be a
really
attraction to a lot of, and think about if you're a tech candidate and you're investing in the Bitcoin world or whatever other currency is out there, and you have a company offering bonuses along that, you might attract some cool people.
All right, that's an interesting thought. So
the blockchain.
yeah, the conversation I've been having around blockchain with Aaron Stewart was more around, it was employer verification, right? So just verifying what information on your resume is static. It's not going to change. So where you worked and what years you worked there, probably not going to change, right? I worked at Connexa from this date to this date. My job title was this. It's not going to change. However, the duties that I had there may change. So I would prefer that not get onto the blockchain because it's immutable. And, you know, if I am ever applying for a job, if I were a candidate, I needed to customize that portion of what my responsibilities and accountability were, then I'd like to have that free. But the years that I worked there, the location that I worked, and that's not going to change. So put that on the blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. It's also a good, I think a blockchain also is going to help with a lot of privacy and security concerns too. You know, I'm surprised there hasn't been more, you know, I mean, God, look at all the information that candidates give us. I'm surprised there hasn't been more questions around data privacy and security.
Well, there's lots of questions. GDPR is a rise from all those privacy questions. But besides making a law, I don't know how much of the GDPR is actually protecting people's privacy at all. I mean, people have been shown time and time again they are certainly more than willing to give up their privacy for convenience. So, but is that a single act or an ongoing? And most social media, most consumer websites think you give it once, you're good forever. And I don't necessarily think that's the case, right? I mean, I wouldn't be getting 5,000 spam emails a day or spam phone calls every day if that weren't the case.
Sure.
So we talked about this. All right. So here's a little bit of a different topic: workforce analytics and tracking what's going on and just tracking metrics inside of your organization. What kind of advancements have you seen there?
Not much. I think I've seen a lot of companies aggregate some of that data into, you know, they're pulling in more systems to better track those analytics. We've seen some mergers in that space, like Workforce Logic and Engage Software is one that comes to mind. And so, but in terms of like predictive analytics, I think we're still measuring the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I would like to see more changes around quality in some of the data that we're looking at. Candidates.
So quality as far as quality of the data, quality of hire, quality of what?
I'm not worried about quality in the data, quality in terms of the people that you're dealing with, satisfaction indexes.
Okay.
For candidate experience data, for example, internal candidate experience, hiring manager satisfaction, you know, that kind of stuff. I think that to me is where we need to be. And the reason why, just because we have such a competitive marketplace, I think we keep focusing on time to fill and, cost per hire and all that other stuff, we're going to be in the same predicament year after year after year. I'm not saying those are not important messages. Our metric says, I'm just saying that I think we need to examine more of quality over quantity moving into this next decade.
Yeah, I would agree because, and I just said this on my last podcast, which doesn't get released until January, so I'm okay repeating it. But I think that corporations need to be a lot more transparent about what's taking place inside their organization. 53% of the people that leave their job isn't because they don't like their job. It's not because they don't like their coworkers. It's because they don't like their boss. So if I knew that ahead of time, that this boss had some problems, I would think twice about joining that organization. So, I mean, I'm calling for, company assessments, department assessments, employee assessments for hiring managers, and make that transparent to candidates, as opposed to constantly asking candidates for more information.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
I don't see anybody even starting that stuff yet. So that should be an interesting road to hoe.
Yeah, not yet.
All right. So I came from Monster. What do you see in the job board space?
Not much. I think that's been on the slow decline.
He's just crushing it, man.
Right. I know. I just think there's social has done such a huge push for us. I still meet a ton of recruiters and talk to a ton of leaders that still get a high return on investment. I'm always curious at what Indeed's doing. They had a big acquisition this year. I believe it was ClickIQ that they purchased. And so, I'm always kind of looking at what they're doing. I just think it's slowly but surely flatlining. I don't think it's going to go away, but I think they have the best opportunity to integrate AI in order to, again, appease what we want in this market.
Yeah, so if you look at Indeed, they've released a couple of major updates this year. First one was the assessments. They started testing it in 2018. They rolled it out, at least in the United States. Not sure about globally, but the candidate assessment tool. They also rolled out some of their employer branding options, because you look at their site, it's like looking at Google. I mean, it's plain white and blue, right? Pretty boring.
Right.
So they are offering some of those now for their employer side. A couple of years ago, they started doing the kind of the Glassdoor thing because they purchased Glassdoor, but those evaluations are available on the Indeed site last I saw. What I'm concerned about with Indeed is they're becoming a massive, organization. They're very concerned about ROI. They're very concerned about keeping up the revenue. And I'm wondering when innovation is going to start slowing down, right? 2 or 3 major product updates a year for an organization that size. I don't know. I think it needs to be the pace needs to be picked up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I think, integrating AI concepts and some of those, and I'll throw LinkedIn right in there with it, because I look at LinkedIn as a job board, pretty much. LinkedIn
Don't tell them that, but yeah, they are a job board.
Yeah, LinkedIn did a great thing last year with integrating their talent insights and also their applicant tracking system. But we really didn't see much come from them this year, although they were slowly rolling those out throughout 2019. I would like to see Indeed do something similar. I think that concept would work wonders with them. I don't think it's a lesson learned from Google. I think it's a case study in what works, what doesn't work. And I think LinkedIn was successful, and it has been successful with their ATS. I think what's next for LinkedIn is eventually a CRM that we all know will eventually come. I would like to see Indeed be a little bit more competitive with them in that front.
Well, I mean, LinkedIn's already had that CRM Lite built into their platform where you can track notes and things like that, which caused a lot of confusion on my team when I was running it, because I was like, you do not use that under any circumstances. I want it in my ATS, my CRM, not in theirs. So that was interesting. All right. Now that we're on the ATS and CRM side, what are you seeing there?
Oh man, CRMs, I think I don't know really any ATS is making a big play and doing, a lot.
Yeah.
Workday, they acquired Scout. The irony there is like, ATS, Workday is known for being a very complicated and hard system to source and find information and, use. So when they acquired Scout, which was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I was like, okay, well, maybe they know this and maybe like, they're trying to advance their sourcing practices a little bit. So that was good. We saw Smashfly go under Symphony Talent. I thought that was a very, very cool move on their end. We talked about iSIMs earlier, but I think the CRMs are going to continue to flourish. And I think eventually we're going to get to the point where you don't see many companies use an ATS because their ATS has become the CRM. And so the CRM will eventually legally as well be able to.
The whole rise of the CRM happened more or less because ATS is we're not able to handle a lot of the marketing activities that really need to be done. But then OFCCP really put the nail in the coffin for that, right? You need to have separate databases. So having two different ATSs or an ATS and a CRM just kind of was a next evolutionary step. I don't know. The only way that I see that a company could get rid of an ATS or CRM is if a job board like Indeed, like LinkedIn really supports ATS or CRM. And then you've got that capability, which is where the candidates are anyway. For now, may not be in the future, but for now they are on Indeed and LinkedIn, which in past, anytime that candidates are flocking to one or two certain areas, that means the industry, in my view, is ripe for disruption. Something will come along and boom, now those candidates are flowing somewhere else.
That's what kind of I was alluding to at the beginning. This is out there. What's going to be the next mover or shaker? That is such a good point. I've been very impressed with CRMs. And ATSs just haven't evolved, and legally they really don't have to. And so you're right. It's time for a little bit of disruption.
The system of record, right? It's kind of what does it really need to do? Does it track candidates on a job? I mean, open up a job, okay. As long as it does those two things well, I think that they can get away with it. But the CRMs are severely lacking in my point of view. If you compare any CRM in the market, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but if you compare that to ClickFunnels or Kartra or HubSpot or any of these other consumer marketing platforms where you can create landing pages and video, and you've got tons of API integrations with just about anything, and you can pull in data from any resource. It's spam verified. You can set up triggers, actions, follow-up sequences. Show me an ATS or a CRM that can support all of those functionality. I don't see any of them. I see one or two that have many of them.
And I completely agree.
So CRMs, you need to pick up your game. That's my 2 cents. So next one is API and cloud. I know that Monster definitely has a cloud platform in the works for a lot of their stuff. They're moving everything onto the cloud. Have you seen corporations starting to adopt the cloud as well?
Yeah. That was actually a big project I was on when I worked for Manpower Group. I don't know where they are now, so I guess I don't know. But yeah, there are a couple of CXR clients that have migrated, and they're using APIs to kind of look at everything at once. It's fascinating, and watching them go through system to system and just on one page. It's really cool. I have seen it adopted, and I have seen champions of it, and it saves them a lot of time and more accurate reporting.
As far as stack ranking candidates, the search, match, stack rank capabilities, putting it into the cloud is really your only option if you want to have a broad view. If you just want to have a singular view, that's fine. But let me see here. Something just popped up on my screen. So if you want to have a broad view, you need to move it into the cloud. If you just want to keep in your little siloed, I guess you don't need to. Depends on your volume of hiring, though. A lot of these cloud operations are very expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we already covered recruitment marketing. All right. Funnels. What I'm seeing is very low adoption of funnels. And what a funnel, but what I mean by that is they're still driving most of their candidates to a single landing page. And that landing page is typically on the ATS or CRM. And it's a career website where they've got 25 or 30 different options to choose from. Join my career talent community, get job alerts, apply to this job, search for a job. Oh, and by the way, share it to 15 different social networks. Candidates don't do all that. They want a single action. Create a candidate journey through a funnel. Are you seeing anybody really take hold of that?
No, not yet. And I think a large part of that is simply because the whole premise around the talent community still doesn't really appeal to anyone. Let's be honest, a talent community, in my opinion, is a group of people who come together that care about one another. If you're in a talent community for a job, you could care less if the person also in that community with you gets it or not. So therefore, it's not a community. And I think there's so much focus on that. And also there's a lot of focus so much on proactiveness. And that is not proactive. None of that is what you said. That's all reactive. And that's where I think branding needs to step it up, and also the leaders, and revamp the whole system. To like, this doesn't work. We do want text message. We do want to be able to apply in 3 seconds. I was joking around with a friend, and we were talking about, why don't we go and apply for jobs like we used to, just to experiment? I was like, well, it takes too long to experiment. And if I'm a candidate. And so, yeah, I just think that is so archaic and so broken. And there's a lot of BS out there when really we all just want to come down to it and simply just not join the community. We want to be in the community, in the company, you know what I mean? And so to me, I think all that stuff needs to slowly but surely go away. That to me is not an experience.
The one company that I'm seeing some good things from is Phenom People.
Yes.
Their websites and their candidate flows, the overall candidate experience is extremely well thought out. When I took a few critical looks at a few of these websites, I was like, wow, these guys and gals, I'm sure there's tons of female engineers there too, but they've been very thoughtful. And I hate when everybody touts, this is built by recruiters for recruiters. Anytime I hear that, I tend to step away, because recruiters, they know what they want, but they are not very good at developing the UX to produce it, right? But Phenom People has been able to do that. There's tons of recruiters there that help them build out their site, and they also got tons of candidate feedback as well. So I think they did their research.
Well, let's not forget that Ed has gone out and he started a consulting practice within Phenom.
Yep.
That's giving individuals more of that, our companies more of that individual consulting type approach. And I think that's going to be so valuable in the marketplace. And he's built quite an impressive team around that. And I'm looking forward to seeing them really get a lot of good business out of it.
All right. One of the other topics du jour right now is, and we already kind of discussed this earlier, but diversity and bias in the recruiting process. I know that there are lots of people trying to do things around this. I'll let you kind of give your 2 cents, and then I'll throw my 2 cents in that also.
I think we're stepping in dangerous waters when we're using AI to solve our diversity problems. A lot of these systems are built off of very small talent pools, and
very small.
Yeah, very short amount of time too.
Well, define very small.
Oh, 500 people.
Well, yeah. I would say anything less than 500 million is very small from an AI perspective.
Yeah, if you really look at the numbers and the data science behind it, you'd be surprised how low some of these companies actually are. None of these companies are ones that we've mentioned. I mean, I'm not going to call people out or anything like that here, but I don't think AI is in a position to solve our diversity problems. I think our mindset is.
What about putting AI aside? What about just recruiter bias or hiring manager bias? What do you think's taking place there?
I really don't have an opinion on that, because I think it changes per organizations. We hear the horror stories, and I think some of that stuff might be exaggerated on both ends of the spectrum. But To me, I think it is important to challenge and have those numbers represented and to measure on it. And I think everyone's biased. I'm biased, you're biased. It's just, that's something we can't control. And unfortunately, hiring will be biased. And I think that's the whole point of, having diversity metrics, to escape the biasism, to get different voices, different opinions, different people on the team. And
I think bringing awareness to it definitely helps out, right? As long as you can, if your recruiting team or your hiring manager team have not been educated on, bias and how to avoid it, as long as you're aware of it and you can start taking action, right? But if you're not aware of it even taking place, then how are you going to, change your effectiveness? Yeah. What I've seen though in the job board space and is that by and large, a diversity posting strategy is worthless.
Yeah.
It's fairly worthless, right? The vast majority of companies that are pushing their diversity posting strategies, they really cannot produce the results. And I think it's more of a checkbox. There's little to no accountability on either side for actually producing quality candidates from a diversity standpoint or inclusion or military. There's very, very few companies that actually have a viable diversity, inclusion, or military recruiting strategy.
Yeah. I could care less about a diversity advertisement. I only care about how diverse is their board.
Yeah.
One of our clients, AARP, has an absolutely brilliant campaign and a brilliant commercial. Highly recommend you go out to YouTube to watch it. It involves when you think of AARP, where did your mind automatically go, Jeff?
Old people.
Retirement. Yes, exactly.
I just got a letter in the mail when I turned 50. I wasn't happy about it.
But I'm amazed at how many people who work there are not older. And obviously, ageism is a bias and a diversity issue that many organizations face. And they have so many programs in place at AARP that really helps bridge the older workforce with the younger workforce and vice versa. And that is part of their branding and recruitment strategy. It shows the actionable programs that the companies are actually doing. And then you look at their board and you see a mix of gender, race, color, disability, etc. To me, that is one company who is talking the talk, walking the walk, and that is a good branding and awareness strategy. And it made me want to work there too. When I left, we had a meeting there. When I left, I was like, "Can I take a picture with your CHRO?" Because I was like so proud of like what they're doing inside that organization. To me, that's an organization that can have a successful campaign and back it up. And unfortunately, you don't see that with a lot of the diversity ads, right? Because they, like to your point, they don't back it up.
Yeah. Like Peloton, not that it was a diversity ad, but completely flopped, completely showed a complete unawareness of what's going on in the marketplace. So we're going to talk about social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. What are your thoughts on, my favorite right now is TikTok. So what are your thoughts on TikTok?
I don't know anything about TikTok.
No? Okay. So let me give my 2 cents.
I'm old.
Yeah, I'm a lot older than you, believe me. So if you're not on TikTok and you're a recruiter, you're making a huge mistake. Every recruiter right now needs to figure out a way to start pushing content out on TikTok. This will be a absolutely massive platform for recruiters eventually. It is not there yet, but there are 1 or 2 recruiters on there that are absolutely slaying it. One of the recruiters that I follow she posted one, she got 200 and some odd thousand views in 48 hours, 48 hours.
Is it for a job or just her personal?
No, she puts out like job and recruiting tips. So how to go for an interview. What should you say when they ask you what's your, why shouldn't we hire you? All those stupid questions that you get in behavioral interviews. She'll go through those. She'll also go through, why your resume isn't getting seen by recruiters. So she just puts those in little 30-second, 1-minute videos, and she's crushing it. So
lead to get jobs.
Sorry?
Like, well, is that helping her fill her positions, you think?
Well, it's definitely helping her promote her brand, her personal brand, right? And I think recruiters have a huge issue with maintaining a positive personal brand in the marketplace. So having another channel, she's also massively available on LinkedIn. So she, has been doing that. She's under the handle Self-Made Millennial. So I'll put a link to her stuff. She's really good. Her last name is, I think her first name is Madeline Mann. I could be wrong, Mann. All right, so Instagram and Snapchat. I remember when Instagram and Snapchat really started taking off, and Pinterest as well. I just, from a talent acquisition standpoint, I just don't see it yet.
Nah.
Yeah.
You can source Instagram. People put what they do on there. If you're that desperate and you're looking on Instagram, more power to you.
Yeah.
But I don't think it really, leave that for the branding folks.
So what I have seen on Instagram is there are companies that do have a good employer branding following, right? They're building up their brand there. They're mostly their own employees following their channel on Instagram. But what's happening is they take a picture, a group picture, and then they tag everybody in the picture, right? If you're sourcing software engineers and they tag everybody in their software engineering team, that could be a good source of candidates for you. You just got to look for those group photos. Be a
very hard find, going through all the photos. And
if you're that desperate, go there. What about, obviously, Facebook? They closed down their social graph this year. Was it this year or last year? Recently, within the last 12 months. Yeah.
A couple months. Actually, I just had a great conversation about this with Eric Jakewith, who works for ZapInfo, Friday. So that was for those of you listening in the future, back in December. He actually showed me some cool tricks that you can do in search engines to target a lot of people on Facebook. And it's amazing what you can, I love, it reminded me of 10 years ago when we used to hack into sites and hack into LinkedIn, and we had all these like nifty little tricks. We can do that with Facebook. And yes, Facebook is X-rayable, and you can easily find candidates, and basically involves you logging out and paying attention to what you see on the front page when you find candidates' information. So as long as candidates give us their information on Facebook, and we can find them via search engines. So it's not as dead as we thought. So
yeah, I'm surprised more companies haven't taken advantage of Messenger as a chatbot for talent acquisition. That's really taking off. Sorry?
Me too. I agree completely.
Yeah, so I'm seeing it huge in the consumer side, right? Brands connecting with users, people that want to buy their stuff, or using it to just push out their content, things like that. But haven't seen it really from a talent acquisition standpoint yet.
I haven't either. There was a couple years ago, remember there was a push with talking to chatbots and building resumes and doing stuff like that,
right.
And interviewing directly through Messenger. And it was made headlines for a second and then never took off. And that always surprised me. I think because people are so worried about the data that they have on Facebook being shared with employers still. But I look at Messenger as something that's completely separate.
Yeah.
And so that to me is still one I think that we should watch out for. And again, I'd like to see LinkedIn mimic that model with their messaging system as well.
They'll charge for it. Messenger's free. If you're charging for it, recruiters are going to be less likely to adopt it.
They're not using their money.
That's true. So 2020 hiring technology conferences, are you going to any?
I am planning on, I already registered for SourceCon coming up in March. So that is one.
Look at you, that's 4 months away and you're already registered?
I'm already going. Maybe because I just left there, I don't know. I'm excited to go. But usually HR Tech, Unleash are some of the ones that I love to attend, as well as Craig Fisher's in it, TalentNet. I love Talent Connect from LinkedIn. That's always a good one. EREs and the Candidate Experience Awards are always a major I don't miss.
I'll tell you what's really taking off is Craig has done an incredible job down in Dallas-Fort Worth area, building up that recruiter network, that tribe, if you will. I mean, I look around here in the Raleigh area, and any kind of meetups or things like that, they've all but disbanded. There's not a very tight-knit community here in the Raleigh area at all, but down in Dallas, it is so tight-knit. It's amazing. You know everybody. It's
Yeah,
great.
and believe it or not, so Craig's event sold out. There's 300 plus people there. It was very crowded. That was at Toyota's headquarters.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And tonight we have a SourceCon event at Uber's offices here. And Danielle Monahan even flew in town for it, as well as some other bigwigs. And so that also has sold out. So it's funny, you have an event, when ATAP has an event here that sells out, you have an event in Dallas, it will sell out. Just very engaged community. We can give credit to Craig Fisher amongst a lot of other people in the region that just really
Julian Placino.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Lots of people down there doing a great job. So rise of podcasts and webinars, huge resurgence in podcasts, something like a 50% increase in the number of podcasts over the last 3 years. What do you attribute that to?
They're on demand, easy to
Yeah.
listen to. I think webinars are heading in that direction as well. There's so many webinars out there that I can't watch the live recording, but I wish they would record it and then put it in the library just as podcasts do. And I think podcasts, it's very cool to hear two people talk that I can listen to, when I'm walking to work, when I'm, in the car. I do long drive trips down to San Antonio often. That's my podcast time, when I'm on a flight, etc. They're very on demand, and they're great for the person on the go, which is like 80% of the population. And so I would like to see webinars do that too, because there's a lot of good ones out there that I wish were more on demand.
Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing the video and the podcast, so that's why I kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And believe me, it wasn't by choice. I got laid off from Monster, so I was like, what the hell else am I going to do, right? Might as well fill up my day with speaking to people I have interest in speaking to. So last topic I wanted to talk about is voice technology and using it in talent acquisition. So we're talking about Amazon Alexa, Google Home, Siri, even podcasts. That could be a voice technology, or recording phone conversations. What kind of positioning do you think that voice technology will play into 2020?
Huge. I brought it up earlier with McDonald's. I mean, huge. You can interview through it now. You know what I mean? And that's how cool is that? Talk about on demand. You can do it right at your home with a device that you have, just sitting there playing music occasionally. I think that is on my radar of things to watch more closely in 2020. Well,
January is going to be Voice Technology Month on the Speaker Agenda show. I've got some really amazing guests. One is a recruiter that's pushing kind of job board style, but more like a career webinar with hiring managers and things like that. He takes the MP3, pushes it out that way, and then candidates can find it and apply right through a text message. We also had Scott and Susan Westwater from Voice Strategy. They wrote the book, and they are voice technologists through and through, so they completely understand it, and they are really about developing a marketing strategy around voice technology. And then I had Nick Livingston from Hone It on also.
He's
and
great.
So I think he's on. So I've never seen anything quite as comprehensive as the platform that he's put together. So from recording and putting snippets together and transcribing it, it's a very smooth package. That is one that was built by recruiters for recruiters, but the UX is also slick, right? So,
yes.
All right. Any last thoughts?
No, my last thought is entering 2020. One thing we didn't talk about was technology. Here's more of a prediction. I just want to put it on the record.
Oh, predictions. Go ahead.
I would like to see the return of headhunters.
In what fashion?
So, somebody that goes out as an advocate for the actual candidate, right? Traditionally, recruiters, find people for jobs, right? I think there's a market, we're entering a marketplace where you can actually have a person that finds jobs for people. So I think we can see an emergence of headhunters re-entering the workforce. I think with the competition out there, I think now is the prime time.
I don't know. I mean, I think the reason why it's changed so much is because who's paying the bill? The company is always going to pay the bill, right? Candidates aren't going to pay a $20,000, $30,000 fee or 20% of their income to a recruiter. And in many states, that's illegal, right? So whoever pays the bill gets to write the rules of the game. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I
People
think there is a market for it. I don't know how they're going to position it though.
obviously upper level, you see it hasn't gone away on the executive C-suite, right? But I think now you can start seeing it VP, senior manager level too. So I think there's so much competition out there that I think companies will pay, because I think those positions are getting harder and harder to fill.
Yeah. I mean, what would be different though? Would it be more of just a hands-on with a specific candidate and you're finding them a job?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The way we used to see it.
Yeah.
So
It's an interesting concept. I'll leave it at that. So before we started the call, I asked you for a call to action. So 2020 Alumni Exchange, Career Crossroad has a talent exchange. So if you're an alumni of Career Crossroad, please go into the talent exchange area. I'll put a link in the description here and you can follow them. They want to get back in touch with you, build a hugely vibrant community through their exchange community there. So anything else?
no, Jeff, thanks. Always a good time.
All right, man, you're the best. Make it a great one.
Woo!
Thanks, everybody.